Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakkam, Namo Namaha. Jai Ganesha, Om Namah Shivaya. At the Sri Siva Subramanyam Mandir in Fiji, which is located right on the edge of Nadi town, there was a small Shiva Lingam shrine close to the road. Sometimes tourists would look in. One day the pujari was doing his morning puja there, and he overheard one of the tourists saying, "Look at these primitive people worshipping rocks and snakes." What he dismissed was the actual philosophical and mystical understanding developed over thousands of years. The Shiva Lingam and the serpent together symbolize deep principles of life, energy, consciousness, circularity, and the spiraling nature of existence itself. The serpent, or Naga, represents the life force and renewal, samsara, awakening, cyclic motion, danger, wisdom, continuity. The lingam itself represents the silent axis, the center, that still point around which movement occurs. Factually, life energies move in a wave-like or snake-like motion. The five senses receive information in waves of energy: smell, taste, sight, touch, hearing. Life is not necessarily linear. That's basically for the mind of humans to get things done, of course. But the life energies are circular or spiraling, wave-like energies. In a sense, mono thinking, if you will, is primitive compared to the polymorphic and stereophonic nature that is life. Sometimes in Hindu worship, you even encounter a spatika lingam, a crystal lingam, wrapped with a copper serpent imagery. Interestingly, this creates an unexpected parallel with early crystal radio technology, where crystal and copper wiring were used together as a communication device capable of receiving invisible signals moving through space. Remember when germ theory was thought ridiculous? Invisible beings that could hop from one person to another. Look at AI today, which is defined as invisible energies that are all around us all the time, filled with information. To the modern scientific mind, this may simply be coincidence or a symbolic analogy, but to the contemplative mind, it raises an intriguing question. Were ancient people merely worshipping objects, or were they intuitively contemplating hidden principles of energy, vibration, resonance, consciousness, and communication woven throughout nature itself? The whole science of mantra yoga, Hindu devotional chants that connect the mind, to the Atmana and Brahman, which we'll explore a little bit later. We human beings have always stood in awe before certain repeating patterns in nature. Among the most mysterious and universal of all these patterns is the spiral. From the largest galaxies in the cosmos to the smallest structures within the human body, the spiral appears again and again, as though creation itself prefers movement that curls, circles, expands, contracts, rises, and descends. Look upward into the night sky, and we see spiraling galaxies turning silently through space. Then look downward to the depths of the ocean, and we discover the spiral of the conch shell, sacred to many religions, the Hindus, the Hawaiians. Watch water disappear into a whirlpool. Observe the curve of a breaking wave, the tube, the barrel. Study the cochlea of the human ear and the twin helix of DNA, the coiling vines in nature, and even the tightly wound epididymis attached to the testes where sperm mature and are stored. Again and again, nature reveals the same mysterious geometry, revealing the inevitability of creation, preservation, destruction, and round we go. Perhaps this spiral is not merely a shape, but a process. The spiral conserves energy while allowing movement. It contains while simultaneously unfolding. It gathers inward, centripetal, and radiates outward, centrifugal. It is both structure and motion. Yet a true spiral also implies something else. It implies a center, a quiet center. A vortex has an eye. A hurricane has an eye. A whirlpool turns around the center. A galaxy spirals around the hidden gravitational core. Even the black hole is understood as possessing a mysterious central singularity beyond ordinary comprehension. The spiral dances around stillness. This insight appears in Hindu symbolism. The Shiva Lingam. By itself, ellipsoidal, smooth, dark, and centered, and it represents not merely an object of worship, but the silent axis around which manifestation turns. Motion emerges around stillness. Form emerges around formless. The infinite dance circles the unknowable center. At the Hindu Ganesha Temple in Flushing, New York, there's a small outdoor shrine within which one sees twin helix of two intertwining snakes with a lingam at the top. Did the ancients know about DNA? Dharma, Niyama, Atma? So this first Orthodox Hindu temple in America, built in the 70s, was quote-unquote coincidentally a Ganesha temple. And personally, I got to spend the first few years of its opening and actually personally met Dr. Alagappan, a wonderful, humble, devoted man. And this is an AI generation, of course, so the mandir doesn't exactly look like that, but it has expanded into a wonderful complex, cultural center, canteen, serving delicious food. And you may like to know the story of its origin. We believe it was founded by Ganesha himself, for years ago, two sadhus came from India and were living in Flushing. One night, one of the sadhus had a dream, and in his dream, Ganesha flew him around the town of Flushing, and as he looked down, he saw a white building surrounded by a picket fence, or a chain link fence. He woke up in the morning, told his fellow sadhu, and said, "Look, we have to walk around and see what's going on here." As they walked around the town of Flushing, lo and behold, they came upon a small white building surrounded by a chain link fence, a grassy yard, and it happened to be an old church up for sale. They bought it. The rest is history. Now, in this shrine in the back of the mandir, we see the twin helix of the two intertwining snakes. And we know as Hindus that this represents the Kundalini and the nerve channels of the Ida and Pingala, feminine and masculine respectively. And the lingam itself represents this axis of creation. See something similar here also? Even though Greek in origin, the caduceus, which is the symbol of medicine, shows an amazing parallel with the Hindu understanding of the staff or the spine, left and right brain harmonizing to spread the wings of health. Now Shiva himself embodies this spiraling mystery. Around his neck are coiled serpents or nagas, ancient symbols of life force itself, circularity, awakening, wisdom, renewal. His matted jata winds around the top of his head, with Mother Ganga pouring out, symbolic of the inner energies rising up the spine. Through Shiva, destructive force also becomes life-giving flow. We see a similar lesson here. Energy itself is not the problem. Direction, balance, and containment determine whether energy destroys or nourishes us. Human life itself seems to move in spirals. We repeat lessons. We revisit desires. We rise, we fall, we practice again and again. Notice that human tendency to practice again and again and again until we master something and attain to a flow. This is represented by Mother Saraswati, having flow. Practice, practice, practice. Savi Hindu Guru Patanjali said, Dosa drista mahor bahuha. See your defects again and again and again. This is how we evolve. We evolve through cycles of confusion and clarity, attachment and release, ignorance, wisdom. History's too spirals. Civilizations spiral. They rise and they fall. Religions too spiral. The individual psyche spirals. Nowhere is this more evident than in the power of sexuality. In Hindu traditions, the word brahmacharya means celibacy. It has a very deep meaning. The word combines Brahma and Acharya. Brahman is the ultimate reality to the Hindus, which is a neuter term. It's not God, which is a male creator being noun. Brahman is a neuter term for the greater forces of energy and light and heat, which become the human emotion of love or bliss, a warm experience. Satchit Ananda, Jyoti Shakti Ananda Shanti. Love, light, and energy. Om, this are we with emotions, mind, and body. So we are individual aspects of that greater source. As a Jivatman, individual source of Jyoti Shakti Ananda Shanti, love, light, and energy. Much like a fire. Take a stick out of a fire, you have a single fire that is not as large as the big fire, but same constituent aspects. Charya means conduct. Acharya is a teacher. Charya means conduct, movement, way of living. Thus, brahmacharya is not just merely celibacy, which it is. It means how to conduct your life in alignment with a greater reality. Remember, the meaning of the Sanskrit Hindu word yoga, per se, has nothing to do with the physical body. It's about yoking, yuj, to one's Atmana and then Brahman. The various Hindu yogas are the means by which Hindus achieve that Atma Darshana, or Atma Darshana realization of the soul, if you will. Charya asks the profound question, how shall we use our human energies? Remember, the Saiva Hindu Guru Patanjali advocates strict brahmacharya for his renunciate shishyas. Remember, the Yoga Sutras have nothing to do with any specific physical posture at all. It's about going deep within and becoming basically anonymous. Tarevartamatra nirbasa sunyam, the no-thangness. Purushartha sunyam, kaivalyam. Now, interestingly, the word acharya carries a beautiful resonance in South Indian Saiva traditions. In Tamil terminology, one encounters this progression: Chariye, Kariye, Yogam, and Jnanam, which is the same as Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, Gyan Yoga, respectively. And these four represent progressive stages in spiritual refinement or unfoldment, if you will. Now, we could look at this in general as EDME, ethics, devotion, meditation, to the ongoing experience of enlightenment and light we're meant to be. But specifically, in Hinduism, we term this Karma Yoga, Hindu ethics, Bhakti Yoga, Hindu devotions, Raja Yoga, Hindu contemplations, Gyan Yoga, enlightenment, outer study and inner study. Tamilan Chariye Kariye Yoga Manyanam. Now, if we look at the sexual energies, this is the strongest force, perhaps, in human existence. It's responsible for human existence. It binds together biology, desire, reproduction, emotion, creativity, pleasure, imagination, attachment, and identity itself. Religions and mystical traditions throughout the world recognize that this force could either elevate human beings or destroy them depending upon how this force was directed. Now, if we look at a spiral staircase, it can lead us up or down. Look at a lighthouse. It's a beautiful metaphor. Within it is a spiral staircase. One person may climb upward toward light, clarity, perspective, and guidance. Another may choose to descend downward into darkness, confusion, obsession, ultimately self-destruction. The staircase is neutral. What matters is the direction of the movement. So too with human passion. Passion's okay because without passion we don't develop compassion, but it must be under control. Now the Sanskrit word shukra beautifully illustrates this layered understanding. Shukra refers to semen or reproductive essence, brightness and radiance, also the planet Venus, Friday in the Navagrahas, and also the sage Shukracharya. These connections are not accidental. Across cultures, Venus became associated with beauty, attraction, sensuality, fertility, art, luxury, creativity. And Hindus saw this same force go to Khajuraho, capable of producing physical life, but could also influence imagination, devotion, poetry, charisma, and deep spiritual intensity. Thus the question was never simply whether sexual energy existed or is to be used. The question was how it was used, how it was conducted. Now let's look at modern biology, which explains that sperm are continuously produced, matured, broken down, and reabsorbed within the body. The coiled epididymis serves as a maturation chamber where sperm are stored and eventually recycled, if not emitted. Ancient yogic systems did not possess modern microscopes or cellular biology, yet they perhaps intuited that reproductive force represented something deeply connected to vitality itself. Now, obviously, this is for the male, and it's classically the males that go off in renunciation, the yogis. This is not to deny the female, but it's just a recognition of the different energies. You may want to visit our video on the Matajis, especially with Mother's Day coming up at the time we're doing this. Because full respect for the feminine powers as well. Obviously, it takes both to have creation itself. Now, we need to focus on this powerful energy that the male possesses because it is a fact that males can do things that are highly creative and highly destructive also. Hindu traditions interpret this shukra as generating ojas, which means also subtle luminosity, but also emanates into strength, steadiness, deep religious spiritual force. Whether one interprets this literally, symbolically, physiologically, hormonally, or mystically, the deeper insight remains. Human beings are transformed by how they direct their energies. One person, male or female, becomes consumed by addiction, exploitation, compulsion, endless craving. Another redirects the same force towards contemplation, art, devotion, philosophy, religion, discipline, compassion, and service. The force itself is not evil, it's the direction. This is why many traditions warned not merely against the abuse of sexuality, but against the unconscious understanding of this. Look at the way people throw the F-bomb around. Think deeply on that. And other crass words. They're about the first and second chakra. Are we thinking just with our anus and our genitals? Can we think a bit higher, perhaps? Important parts, all, but we also need to elevate our consciousness. That very same sexual energy can help create a loving marriage, a stable family, children, tenderness, sacrifice, and profound spiritual companionship and realization. But that same energy, when misdirected, commercialized, compulsively indulged in, or stripped of responsibility, can also descend into exploitation, addiction, betrayal, loneliness, trafficking, abuse, appropriation, and some of the darkest and most seedy corners of human society. Are we getting an insight into why Hatha Yoga was never meant for display? Hatha Vidya Bhaveda Yavate Guya Niveda Tu Prakasha Varanam. It's become very sexualized, obviously very physically oriented. This is why Patanjali never mentions any specific asana. Just find one steady, comfortable pose to go deep within and actually transcend duality. Dvandava anibhagataha. When we have freedom from responsibility, it produces chaos. The spiral itself teaches us this lesson in another way. Consider something as simple as a light bulb. Turn it clockwise, and the circuit completes. Illumination appears. Turn it counterclockwise, and the light goes out. The movement is similar, but the outcome is opposite. So too with human life. That same spiral may lead toward enlightenment or delusion, endarkenment, into manipulation rather than compassion, destruction rather than creativity. The same charisma that inspires millions may become ego inflation. Just study cultic movements throughout history, right up to this very day. That's why many of the great mystics said, attracting people to yourself is another self-deluding activity. The sad tale of modern yoga is a tale of scandal, sexual exploitation, monetary indiscrepancies. This same force that's within all of us that can create intimacy can also create exploitation. The same religious intensity that awakens wisdom can also harden into fanaticism. So the spiral is neutral. The conduct, the charya, the karma yoga, determines the result. That's why we say good karma. This insight also helps explain the enduring symbolism of Nataraja. Shiva as the cosmic dancer. In the image of Nataraja, the universe itself is portrayed as a rhythmic dance of creation, preservation, destruction, concealment, and liberation. Shiva dances within a circle of fire, symbolizing the endless cycles and spiraling energies of existence itself. It's not a coincidence that a statue of Nataraja stands outside CERN, the great particle physics research center in Europe. Scientists there study matter, energy, motion, and the hidden structures of reality itself. Many have seen the Nataraja image as a profound metaphor for the cosmic dance of particles, forces, creation, and dissolution occurring throughout the universe. Whether through mysticism or physics, humanity repeatedly discovers that reality is not static, it moves, it vibrates, it spirals, it dances. Creation itself moves in currents, cycles, coils, rotations. Galaxies spin, waves curl, DNA twists, sound spirals through our ears. Life emerges through coiled pathways within the body. The cosmos dances in patterns both immense and intimate. The question is not whether we participate in this dance, we already are. So the staircase is before us. We can climb the lighthouse and become a beacon, a shining light, helping others, guiding others through the darkness perhaps. Or we can be a con, using charisma, energy, sexuality, religion, or power to manipulate and deceive others. The spiral remains the same. The direction determines the destiny. So what happens when we stop dancing? When we forget how to dance, perhaps? Interestingly, my father was an elegant ballroom and tap dancer in the style of Fred Astaire. Graceful, refined, stylish, and filled with rhythm. He loved movement, music, posture, timing, and the subtle art of leading and flowing in harmony. Yet, ironically, the local Baptist church that did not approve of dancing shunned him. Even elegant ballroom dancing was viewed with suspicion by certain religious communities, which associated dancing with temptation, worldliness, impropriety, and moral decline. This raises a fascinating question. What happens when human beings forget how to dance? Or, perhaps more importantly, what happens when cultures force people not to dance? Reflecting on the missionaries who arrived in Hawaii and discouraged or outright banned traditional hula dancing, the Hawaiian people who once danced stories of nature, ancestry, spirituality, and cosmic rhythm were increasingly expected to adopt Victorian standards of dress and behavior in a hot climate. Grass skirts disappeared beneath layers of imported clothing. Sacred movement traditions were viewed by some outsiders as primitive or immoral, rather than as beautiful, symbolic, and meaningful. So dance was banned along with surfing. This pattern has repeated itself throughout history. Many indigenous and ancient cultures used dance not merely as entertainment, but as prayer, storytelling, courtship, emotional release, communal bonding, spiritual ecstasy, mythological expression, and an alignment with the rhythms of nature itself. See the difference? Mono-thinking as opposed to polymorphic. Dance and music are probably the original religions because they are inseparable from profound religious cultural identity. In Hindu traditions, we immediately think of Nataraja again, the dancer, the cosmic dancer, whose movements symbolize creation, preservation, destruction. The many forms of Shiva vividly depict this dance of life. Interestingly, he can be an ascetic yogi, devoted husband, father, dancer, destroyer, silent sage, protector, meditator, and also androgynous. And even the abstract lingam goes beyond form itself. This creates a remarkably flexible and psychologically sophisticated religious symbolism. We recognize that some are called to family life, grihasta, some to monastic life, sannyas, some towards being a strong protector, kshatriya, some to scholarship, brahman, some to silence, the muni, and as by Ravya, the power to destroy what needs to be destroyed, such as greed, anger, lust, the three stripes, the tripundra, lobha, krodha, kama. Also pride, delusion, fear, ignorance, egoism. Many religious traditions possess profound and beautiful sacred archetypes, but it seems that the Shiva tradition is exceptional in the sheer range of paradoxes, psychological dimensions, life stages, and metaphysical principles unified within one symbolic continuum. A complete symbolic ecosystem of consciousness. But sacred dance is not unique to Hindu traditions. It appears in Hawaiian hula, Native American ceremonial dance, African tribal dance, Sufi whirling, Hasidic ecstatic movement, folk traditions throughout Europe, temple dance traditions in Asia, and countless village festivals across the world. Dance connects body, emotion, rhythm, and spirit, and community. And perhaps this is exactly why some traditions feared it, because dance bypasses excessive intellectual control and reminds people that they are embodied beings connected to something larger than themselves. Now, logically, this doesn't mean that every form of dance is automatically sacred or healthy. Some forms of dance can become commercialized, hypersexualized, exploitive, narcissistic, and even degrading. There is an important distinction between graceful, embodied expression and purely provocative performance. And this creates an interesting side reflection. If some religious communities once condemned the elegant ballroom dancing of Fred Astaire's era, what would they think of many modern, highly sexualized dance forms today? The contrast is striking. One might argue that modern culture has moved from excessive repression to excessive stimulation. Once again, the challenge becomes balance. Not total repression and not total indulgence, but conscious participation in the dance of life. When healthy forms of movement, celebration, ritual, and communal joy disappear, the energy itself does not disappear. It often reemerges as rigidity, shame, aggression, ideological extremism, disembodied living, perhaps emotional isolation. A civilization that loses the ability to dance may eventually lose the ability to move gracefully through life itself. Look at the sad state of affair of the Native American Indians. But even today, look at many people who spend countless hours sitting motionless before glowing screens, watching others perform while they themselves rarely participate in communal rhythm, celebration, or embodied expression. Now, I know we're watching something here, but only do this for a small part of your day. Get outside. Go into nature. You can watch our video on Bhume Mata, but more importantly, go out into Mother Nature. Take off your shoes and socks. Put your bare feet in the ground. Take early morning walks. Enjoy the sunshine. But it is clear that many have forgotten how to dance. This is a modern tragedy. When the universe itself moves rhythmically, the tides, the seasons, the breath, the heartbeat, the planets, the galaxies, the spiraling forms of nature, everything dances. The deeper question is whether, as human beings, we still remember how to join this dance consciously, gracefully, and with balance. The important point is not that religion is bad, but that excessive rigidity, absolutism, and fear of embodied human culture can sometimes produce tragic consequences. History gives many examples where missionaries, reformers, or religious authorities attempted to suppress local customs, arts, or expressions that they considered dangerous, pagan, immoral, and uncivilized. Some important examples include, again, Hawaiian hula discouraged or banned under missionary influence. Native American ceremonial dances restricted in the U.S. boarding school eras. African drumming and ritual practices suppressed during colonialism and slavery because drums unified communities and preserved identities. European folk festivals and pagan seasonal celebrations, Christianized or prohibited. Temple dance traditions in India at times stigmatized or misunderstood under Victorian colonial morality. Puritan opposition to theater, dancing, certain holidays, and festive celebrations in parts of early American England. Some Calvinist and Baptist traditions discouraging dancing, card playing, alcohol, theater, or even instrumental music. To this day, Taliban suppression of music and dance. Extremist religious movements destroying statues, art, and cultural heritage viewed as idolatry. The underlying pattern is very important. When an individual, when a culture, becomes excessively fearful of the body, of nature, of joy, sensuality, femininity, artistic expression, rigidity can intensify. And once rigidity intensifies, human beings often begin dividing the world into pure, impure, saved, damned, believer, heretic, civilized, pagan, chosen, rejected. That binary mentality can become very dangerous. Historically, this has sometimes contributed to witch hunts, inquisitions, forced conversions, iconoclasm, censorship, cultural erasure, book burnings, suppression of women, colonial domination, slavery rationalizations, and persecution of indigenous peoples. The Salem witch trials in colonial New England are a classic example of fear, religious rigidity, hysteria, and social pressure spiraling downward into collective irrationality. Women and even men sometimes were accused based on suspicion, dreams, emotion, gossip, or social tension. Likewise, slavery in parts of the Atlantic world was at times justified using selective biblical interpretation. Some of the boats that brought the slaves over were named Jesus. Likewise, slavery in parts of the Atlantic world and others was justified despite obvious contradiction with compassion and human dignity. One side fears the body, the other side worships the body. One side suppresses dance, the other commodifies it. One side burns books, the other forgets wisdom entirely. This is why the Nat principle becomes so relevant. Our upcoming book, the Nat Sutra, points out these extremes. N-A-T. One's way is not the way, fundamentalism, or no way, New Age universalism, but a way. This is not rigid repression. It's not chaotic indulgence, but conscious consciousness. A civilization needs discipline and joy, ethics and beauty, restraint and celebration, contemplation, silence and song, stillness and dance. Too much rigidity can suffocate the human spirit. Too little structure, on the other hand, can dissolve meaning altogether. And perhaps this is why the image of Nataraja is so profound. The cosmos is neither frozen nor chaotic. It moves rhythmically. The dance itself is balance. And when humans lose balance, history shows the consequences can become very severe. Perhaps one of the greatest lessons of history is this: a society that completely fears joy may become cruel. A society that completely abandons discipline may become empty. Wisdom may lie in learning how to dance consciously between the two. Om Namah Shivaya.